We are going to cover food service regulations from the focus of someone who is serving food day to day. Tomorrow, and we are going to be covering it from the manager's point of view. And if you've got the misfortune of being on the audit list, you get three trainings with me this week. And then on Friday, we will be doing an audit specific training for schools that are on the audit list. You'll know who you are because you got an email from me inviting you to that training. If you didn't get that email, don't worry. You're not on the audit list. You don't need to attend it. But we've got you'll get a lot. You got a lot of emails from me over the summer, and you'll get a lot of FaceTime with me this week. But I'm thankful for you giving us your time. So let's jump right in. So our norms for today, it used to be, come on and off mute and ask questions. Honestly, the group got so big that we're in webinar mode now, and so the best way for you to share questions is through the chat. You've got myself and Claire, and we're going to be monitoring the chat and answering questions as they come up. We'll also have a couple of breakpoints where we can interact and we can go back and forth on things. But unfortunately, I don't think you'll have the ability to unmute yourself and talk. And honestly, with this group, it'd be chaos if we did. So I'm going to try to cover as much as I can, and I'll be watching the chat as we go along. So feel free to open the chat up and put your questions in there, because I do like to get real examples and help you with your actual challenges. For today, you've got Claire Coffey and myself, Ryan Gomes. We're your School Food Solutions client managers out here in California. And this is our agenda for today. We've got no shortage of stuff to cover, but we revamped it from years past. We're still gonna, we'll do the greatest hits and we'll answer the most pressing questions. But what we really wanted to focus on is just knowing that your time is scarce and limited, and you've got a lot going on in your campuses. What did I wish you knew, or what should you have known before you started the school year, right? And so we wanted to organize today's agenda and the things that are going to be most pressing and help you be most successful. So we're going to start with talking about key partnerships and how to get the most out of them. We're then going to go into what I call the paper with all the answers and talking about meal production records. Again, this is something that's always been there, but we may or may not have interacted with it in a very useful way. And so we'll talk about best practices there. We're going to spend some time in the transaction time section. This is going to be POS and your point of service, and do a little bit deeper dive than we may have done in the past in some of these trainings. Then we move on to, but I don't want it, and the offer versus serve section, where we'll kind of do a next level training on how to implement offer versus serve to speed up your lines and engage and boost participation, things like that. We'll also talk about food presentation and handling of the food. This will be a combination of both, how we lay our food out and also food safety. And then finally, waste management, how overordering means less lifting for you, and SB 1383, the law that is still in the books in California about organic waste diversion. We've talked about it before. We'll talk about it again. And then, like any good class, I got some homework we'll assign out to everyone. It's not hard, but it's stuff you'll take away from here and do on your own time. So with that being said, let's jump right in. So key partnerships, there's three people I want to really hone in on. First of all, School Food Solutions, your vendor, and your point of sale. School Food Solutions, that's us. This is your West Coast School Food Solutions support team. We've got Kelly on the claim side, Grace and Andy on the eligibility side, and then myself, Tess, and Claire on the client-facing customer support side. You pay us, and we're here to help you. We've all worked in charters in small schools before. We've worked with school data. We are your go-to year-round support and eligibility management team. One of the things we do every year is trainings like this one. With our team growing and with your needs growing, I want to make sure that we kind of loop around on three of the things that all of you have with School Food Solutions. So number one, we have a dedicated eligibility team. It's Grace and Andy leading it year round. This time of year, we bring in a lot of interns to help with processing. But our forms at School Food Solutions, probably the oldest existing email address we have, and the one that is going to get you the answers fastest. This is also our extra secure mailbox for receiving sensitive data. And so if you're emailing in FRL applications or universal benefit applications, this is where they go. It's also where you can forward email requests from your auditor. As your fiscal auditors, both in the fall and the spring, make requests to verify enrollment and eligibility. And those are questions that our team has the supporting data and can provide to you. So School Food Solutions, the forms at schoolfoodsolutions.org, that's an email address you're going to want to save and keep handy. The other side of our support that we've really built out over the year, and our director Kelly has taken the lead here, is our claims team. Again, claims is more than just submitting the claim and edit checking your counts at the end of the month. This is going to be your one-stop mailbox for both. You're going to receive emails from here. So monthly, you're going to receive your claims, your expected claims reimbursement, so you can book your receivables. This is also where you can forward payment questions. We can handle point of sale questions here as well. And if you need additional time for backdating, we'll talk more about that in this training, but this is the person you'll want to be in contact to if you have any claims, discrepancies, errors, or if you need time to fix things. Finally, with everyone, we also have a shared Google document. This is our running notes agenda. For most clients, it starts from when you started with us. So we've got multiple years of conversations. One thing that you can expect from us is every time we have a meeting, that meeting has an agenda, and we are going to take notes on it. So this is both, I think of it as two big resources for you. Number one, it keeps you organized when you're feeling unsure about the work that needs to be done. We're going to help bring clarity to that, and we're going to lay it out in easy to follow notes. This is also a place where when you have questions, when you have concerns, when you have things that you want to discuss with us, you can write them down and know that the next time we get on the phone, that's going to be part of the agenda. And we can talk about that together. So this is both for you to bring us information to discuss, as well as us to document all of the conversations we've had. So this also can function sort of a library or a resource for you, because anything we would have chatted about is archived in here as well. So you have one of those. It's usually when you schedule a meeting, it's usually in our meeting invite. If you don't know where it is, if you didn't bookmark it, that's okay. Just email one of us and we'll find it and send you the link for it. Again, it's just a Google Doc. It's not going to change. It's only shared between us and the people on your team, but it's a wealth of information, and it's really a tool to keep us, you can hold us accountable for the work we're doing for you, and we can help be more transparent and supportive in the resources we provide back to you. Let's talk a little bit more about the claims process and what you can expect from School Food Solutions. Again, your job as the food servers, you're putting all of the information into mealtime. We then go into mealtime and pull all of that information out. We check it against your eligibility and your school calendar, and your total enrollment. We then put that together as a claim and submit that to the Department of Education for reimbursement. You get paid both at the state and the federal level. This is a report that traditionally goes to maybe your finance person, your back office. I understand that most folks on this call are probably not the accountants, and that's okay. Again, no one's asking you to do accounting work, but on what your accounting team gets and what we produce for you is an annual spreadsheet that tracks month by month what you served, what you ordered, the value or the cost of that food, and the value of the reimbursement. And if you've never seen this before, someone at your school has this. This might be something I'd want to look at on a monthly basis. This will tell you, how are my orders matching up to my service? Is what I'm serving actually getting counted and reimbursed? And if it's not, we can discuss how do we make sure that you're not leaving money on the table? Because if you're doing all this hard work, we for sure want you to get paid back for it. And this is going to be our year-to-date best way to double check all of that, right? And so you can also see month over month, where am I trending? Is participation going up? Is participation going down? This is going to be an easy report that someone can share with you, that someone could show you. But if you haven't seen this, ask around. We can help let you know who we send it to. But this is absolutely information that can be super helpful no matter what role you play in the meal program. Finally, with that being said, regarding School Food Solutions and supporting your schools, it's a partnership. And so one of the things I want to make sure that we both are ask of everyone and say is, we're most helpful when we're part of the conversation early and often. And I know everyone's inundated with emails. My team and I are very good at handling email, so don't feel bad about CCing us, even if you think like, oh, I don't know if school food needs math. You can default to putting us on it anyway. We're very good at cleaning our inboxes out, reading every message quickly. I may not always respond to every email you send me, but I definitely look at all of them. I read all of them. And so that's super helpful because I can see, oh man, it looks like we're having some delivery issues, or quality's kind of trending the wrong direction on this site, but not that site. Maybe I should talk with the vendor next time I see them. But when we're part of the conversation early and often, we're able to support better off. What I never want to have to do is, you to pull me in when tensions are really high and we're at a point where it's not an easy way to work things out. And so when you include school food solutions early, whether it's talking to the CDE or whether it's talking to your vendor, or even whether it's internally, your teams may have questions, and I may be able to help explain them to you where they get the answers they need quickly. And so you can always forward emails and questions to School Food Solutions. That is what we that's the bare bones of consultation is we let you know. We let you know what we think, right? And so we're always here for you to ask questions of us. You can CC us on email so we can see conversations going back and forth, even if you don't need us to chime in on it. You're always welcome to invite us to existing meetings, right? So if you're working with your data team and they've got questions, we're happy to come in and support that conversation so that everyone gets the answers they need as soon as they can. Again, the more advanced notice, the better to be able to join those. There's only two of us, but we really do make an effort to be part of those because we want to make sure that you get the support explaining the nuances of this program as well. So you're just not, in the spotlight without all the answers, right? We're here to support there. You can always call and text, and you can always ask for a meeting, right? So if sometimes again, we're here to work at the level you need us. So if monthly meetings are helpful, we can schedule one. If you feel pretty confident but just need to check in on things here and there, that's totally fine. Never hesitate to reach out for a check-in call. We're always happy to talk, and that's always a great point to interface and kind of handle anything that might be coming up. The next big partnership or the next big partner you have in this program is going to be your vendor. I always, but between the three of us, you, the school, as the SFA, School Food Solutions as your consultant, and the vendors, we do play pretty different roles. And so it's always nice to sort of outline, no one gets a short list. No one has an easy job here. But so as the school, you're the ultimate owner of the program. You're also the eyes, the ears, and for the most part, the hands doing all the serving, right? You're the one that is responsible for meeting all the USDA requirements, like professional standards training, hence why you're in a training today. And you're also the doers as far as completing the paperwork, the delivery logs, managing the inventory. And again, because you are the eyes, ears, hands, and feet on site, you are also the main communicators with the vendors and School Food Solutions. And so you are ultimately the owners of your meal program. School Food Solutions, we're your compliance partners in the background, right? So we're completing a lot of the paperwork on the back end. We're either submitting or helping to submit periodic state reporting, whether that's food related or that could be your cow. We support on the cow pads and UBA side as well. We support with your claim and resource management. We support with your training staff, whether on the eligibility food service or with your provision program side. We also serve as a liaison between you and the vendor, right? So you don't feel like you need to be in a conversation with your vendor without us. We're here to support. We feel like we do a good job of speaking the same language as the vendor, but also understanding it from folks that have worked in a charter school. And the idea is that hopefully we can get you to a good outcome faster, right? And so we are there to support with that communication. And when every 5 years, when it's your time, when you have an audit, we provide a full year-long push-in audit support. So for those of you that are on the audit list here, I'm excited to start working more closely with you. And for those that are not on the audit list, don't worry, it's coming up. We'll get to do that again soon. Finally, your vendor, they are the food experts, right? We contract with them to provide USDA compliant meals and a meal pattern that meets the requirements of our grade groups and our schools. We also lean on them for the logistics side of it, the delivery of the packaging and the delivery of those meals on the times we need them, right? We don't have the capacity to operate our own cheesecake factory, right? We need a partner that's able to do those pieces, not only the food piece, but the logistics piece. And our food vendors do that really, really well. They're also the ones that are, responding to your questions and requests, right? They're the ones that have the control over the food, the menu, those sort of pieces, and they manage. They have dietitians on their team to do those things, and they're also the ones that we put together our RFPs and our contracts where we outline the clear obligations of how they support our program, and it's their job to follow that. There's another partner here that I want to mention on this call too, because tech is everywhere. And one of the people that do, or one of the products that does some of the heaviest lifting in this program is our point of sale. That's either meal. I think for 99% of us on this call today, that's going to be mealtime. Um, it's our point of sale or point of service. This is our cloud point of service platform. It's separate from your vendor. You pay for it. You own it. And so this is both going to manage your eligibility, your enrollment, and those pieces. It also manages your meal service. So it has things where it will automatically only count the first meal served to a student, whether you enter their name two or three times or once, right? Like it does a lot of the compliance pieces to make your claims more accurate from the start. It's your data in there. And so this is a great place to look at what have I done and what are the trends. And so this is another way where you can utilize this to help you forecast ordering and project how many meals you'll need. This is also something, School Food Solutions, I like to think of us as mealtime experts. We've been using the software and working with them very closely for years. But again, they've got their own team of tech support. They are now owned by a company called Harris, and Harris has done a lot to enhance the software. And so also, if you need both a quick answer, they have a very good knowledge base searchable directory. And if you've got a more complex question, they've got a tech support ticketing system, and that's all included with your annual membership. And so I want to make sure that although School Food Solutions is always here to support with those, if our phone goes to voicemail or it's after hours and you can't get a hold of us, you've got other options as far as getting support from mealtime, and it's all built into the software. You basically just hit the help button in the top right hand corner of the screen and you have access to these pieces. All right. I said a lot real fast. Hopefully that made some sense. Quick discussion break, and maybe put a thumbs up or thumbs down in the chat, but who's ready for the start of the school year? And so has anyone done all five things on this list? Have you placed orders with your vendor? Have you logged into your point of sale? Did you organize your meal production record binder? Have you been in your kitchen? And finally, and importantly, did you find your thermometer? Are you ready to take temperatures on the first day of school? So thumbs up, thumbs down. Who's ready for the start of the school year? Perfect. I see some thumbs. That's good. And if you haven't done those things yet, that's why we're talking about them in July. For most of you, you've got either some time or lots of time to do it. So, um, these are all things that we want to put on our calendars. Let's talk about when we're getting ready for the start of the school year. One of the things that hasn't changed is going to be our meal production records and our transit logs. These are the paper. I want to frame this as the paper with all the answers, right? Because this is going to be a place you'll want to start and end your day. Now we don't make these. These come from our vendor. These are required by the USDA. This shows and tells the story of your daily menu. These should be reviewed prior to meal service, right? This is what am I planning to serve today? Again, unlike when I cook dinner at home and I just look in the fridge and think, what do I want to eat tonight? We've already placed orders weeks ago. We have a menu that has been structured in a very specific way to hit our different subgroups. And how does all of that information come to us? Well, it comes to us both in the form of food delivered by our vendor, but then the documentation of it comes in a transit log, a meal production record, or a document that is the combination of both. They all look a little different, but here's what a basic example could look like. This is going to be the different components we plan to offer that day. We'll have our meat alternates, our proteins, our vegetables, our apples, and we'll have two types of milks listed, as well as the quantities we plan to serve them in. And then we've got a bunch of blank spaces. Now, these blank spaces aren't there by accident, they're for us to fill those pieces in. So, right, we will confirm what did we plan to serve, what did we have left over. Subtracting both of those should get us what we actually served. Then we'll also write down what did we discard or move back into inventory. Most production records will also have spots for the meal temperatures, and they'll have spots for the total served, which the number will come from your point of sale. So why are these so important? Well, they're required by the USDA, right? This is the ongoing backup we must keep to ensure, that we receive our reimbursements. And so it's both the federal and state requirement in California. This is also the documentation to show that we met the state meal mandate. So these play double duty on the requirement side. This is also how we make sure that we've received the right items from our vendors. This is also going to tell us, for our medical meals or meals that need to be separated, this will lay those out separately, right? So what's our allergen-free meal? Oh, it's listed here on the MPR. It also is going to help us understand our meal pattern. If you look at the photos here on the side, these are two examples of meals that a vendor might send us that have multiple components all in one container. How do I know what's in there and if it's compliant? It's going to tell me on the meal production record. And so that's why it's important to have these available and ready and review them before you start meal service. For any of us that are with Revolution Foods asks us to print these out from their website. So some vendors will deliver them with the food. Revolution Foods, you'll want to specifically go in. I think you can do it a week at a time. So Friday before the next week or Monday before you serve breakfast, you'll want to download and print these out. So if you're a Revolution Foods client, I might want to talk to my tech team right now and get a printer installed in my kitchen because I know I'm going to be printing things every day or at the very least every week. Very simply, because again, the program only works with federal reimbursement. And so we need to do three things to make sure that we receive reimbursements for our food. We need to make sure our meals meet the meal pattern. That's what our vendor is there to support us with. We need to make sure we have an accurate counting system. That's what our point of service is there to support with. And we need to have production records that accurately document what we served to show that we serve things in the right quantities to meet the meal pattern. And so that is where our production records are going to be so crucial. So discussion break, so you can put your answer in the chat here. But how do you know what each food item credits for? So how would you know if an entree counts as a grain, if it has any meat or protein in it, where the vegetable is and how much vegetable is being served? Would an item that's prepackaged together count as multiple things? How would you find that information? And the answer is on the production records. The production, and I should say, a production record has a specific definition. It is outlined by the USDA about what needs to be on here. So every production record, by definition, will have this information. If you're not seeing this information, it means you're either not looking at a production record. You might be looking at a transit log or a monthly menu or something that is not the full meal production record document, or we need to work with your vendor to make updates so that the information from their nutrition planning software is populating on the production record. But you should be able to clearly see what's my protein, what's my grain, what's my vegetable. Some entrees are packaged together to have multiple things. So here we have a chicken tamale, which is going to have beans on the side there. So in one container, we're going to expect to see 2 ounces of grain. That's going to be your corn tamale. Then the inside is going to be stuffed with chicken, and that's going to have 2 ounces of credible protein. And then we'll have a half cup of vegetable on the side there as well. So in that one entree chicken tamale dish, you got three groups there. This also shows that to meet the rest of the vegetable subgroup, we've got additional fava beans on the side. We also today have a 2 ounce bag of apples that credits as a half cup of fruit. And then we have a choice of milk there too, all clearly laid out in columns. And so you can see what credits for what. And that, one of the easy double checks is there a number, some sort of number in every column, right? So if one of those columns is completely blank, we got a problem for lunch. I think the natural question here for filling out production records is, does that mean I have to count everything? And yeah, for the most part, it does, right? Because how did you know you received what you were billed for? And how do you know you have enough to meet what you're planning to serve that day? And so it's not counting every single grape, but I would want to have a pretty good idea of how much fruit and vegetable I'm putting out. And specifically, for sure, counting every individual entree because yeah, you how would I know what I served if I didn't know what I started with? So at the end of the day, this is what a production record will probably look like. Now, the old overall structure and format may look a little different depending on your vendor and the software they use, but the general sort of categories are always going to be here. It's going to list all of the things you put out on the service line that day. It's going to ask for a total of what you served. How many reimbursable meals came through the line today? That's the number that is, and that here is on the top of the production record, but that's also going to be the number in your point of sale. Now, for our schools that offer versus serve, meaning that we offer everything, but only need to serve, students can decline up to two of the components, we may have different numbers of milks and vegetables left over, and that's where you fill in by hand and make any notes if you had to either bring other stuff out from inventory or if items were dropped. Again, this should encapsulate the story of what happened that day. So if there was chaos and things got dropped and broken, I might see some sauce on this, and I might also see a note that said had to discard 15 meals because a cart got knocked over, right? Like that. That is what happened, and that's how you're going to document that on your meal service. Good question. So, question in the chat: do we send those to School Food Solutions and keep those in a binder? You do not need to send those to School Food Solutions on a regular basis. So, but if you had questions or if you'd like feedback on how you're doing it, scanning over a couple of days is a really great way for Claire and I to see both what your vendor's sending you, what your participation's looking like, and we can also give you feedback of, yeah, these look compliant. I can clearly discern what happened that day for meal service. Do you need to save them? Absolutely. So the all documents from the meal program need to be saved roughly 5 years. It needs to be saved until your next audit. And so, yeah, have a binder. We'll talk more about cleaning out the kitchen later in the training, but have a binder. This is the time of years you can take last year's production records, put them into storage, and start a fresh binder. You're probably going to need the biggest binder that Staples sells. But it's, have one place and you can just three-hole punch them and put, the most recent on the top, but have a binder to store these so you can easily flip through and reference. All right, so now we know what we're planning to serve, right? We've reviewed our production records, we've pulled all our items, we've heated our food up. Now let's talk about transaction time, POS and line management, right? And so in this section, we want to talk about your counting system. It goes by many names. So point of sale, point of service, mealtime, which is kind of like the Kleenex, if you will, of point of sale systems. But this is required by the USDA. We need an accurate way to count the reimbursable meals we serve so that our claims just aren't pulled out of thin air. It also is outlined what your school will do in your own meal counting and claiming policy. So this could vary school by school, but your school has documented how you plan to do this. You have one of these. This is something that with all of our clients, you have a point of sale system. You're paying for a point of sale system. And so we want you to use it and get the most out of it. Again, the mealtime system or the other competitive brands out there, they're all online software that can run on pretty much any computer. When a student served a meal, that's recording that transaction, and the piece that's so useful about a specific school nutrition point of sale system is it's got the compliance safeguards built into it, so we're not going to overcount or double count or miscount meals. Again, the counts that make it into your point of sale system are what fund the program. And so the natural question is, why do we have to do this if meals are free? And so for next school year and for the, in California, for the ongoing future, free universal meals or free meals for all is here to stay. But meals are only free to the student. There is still a cost to us. And so again, we don't charge our students or families for food, but we do still pay for those. And what we pay our vendors for those is not the same as our reimbursement. So we're charged for every meal we order, but meals are only reimbursed if they are served compliantly and entered into our point of sale system. So that is the most important part of our day, right? Is, well, I mean, feeding the kids is first and foremost, but if we do that and don't get it into our point of sale system, it's like it never happened. We lose that money. And if we don't write it down or put it anywhere else, we forget about it and it's totally gone. So utilizing your point of sale system in the line is the by far the best practice and the most reliable way to make sure that you're always reimbursed for the meals, the hard work you do, the meals you serve, right? And also, we can have our students support with entering, it doesn't need to all be on our shoulders as the food server. We can have the students support us here too. So whether it's entering their PIN numbers or scanning their IDs, mealtime is flexible. So it's got everything from touchscreen compatibility, so it'll work on tablets and laptops. Tablets aren't great, just not having a built-in keyboard, but touchscreen laptops have been very, very effective. As long as you're running it on a Windows PC, you should be able to use almost any 10 key, number pad. And so students can enter their 4 or 5 digit number and they'll hear a little bing or a buzz, much like kind of getting on a Southwest airplane. You hear that once it's entered correctly and you can take your meal. And it's students at all grade levels can either hand over an identification card with their name and barcode on it, or they can scan their own card, and whether they keep it or put it in a basket or return to the classroom. Again, we've got many different sort of options of how you can cycle through those. But the idea is, students either handing a card or scanning a card is a very, very low touch option for you as the server. So you can focus on keeping the line stocked and observing that all the meals are compliant. Finally, say the student forgot their PIN, doesn't have their ID card, and you don't have a touch screen, you can still type in and search their name. And so that's always a safe fallback option. And so mealtime is by far the most flexible, and it's why it's one of our favorites. So best practices here. Students in mealtime. I don't have it. Sorry, I got a question in here. About saying the names. So they're saying the names to you. You're still typing the name in there. If you're not seeing the search feature, we can look at we may need. So if the issue is I'm not able to search my kiddos, then let's connect offline because it could be either a data sync issue or we may need to get into the settings and tinker with your screen. And so if I'm saying something, you're like, my mealtime doesn't have that. Let's chat and look at your specific software instance together because maybe something we can adjust or fix for you. All right, but basic best practices, again, whether you've got mealtime or another point of sale, is we want that point of sale positioned at the end of the line, right? So you can't enter them into the mealtime into your point of sale until you know they took a reimbursable meal. And so we're going to do that at the last part of the line. We do want to establish a nightly data sync. Now, this wouldn't be, if you're the food server, you're likely not also the data coordinator. Hopefully not. That's a lot of responsibility on one person. But someone else on your team can work with School Food Solutions to make sure that all of your students are getting pushed in overnight. So if a new student comes to your school on Monday, by Tuesday morning for breakfast, their name should be in mealtime and makes your job pretty seamless. If that is not happening, or if over the summer they tend to break as students matriculate up, let us know and we can we can work with you to get those connected. Honestly, Andy and Grace have probably been reaching out to your data team already to get those set up. Um, and then finally, we want to run the daily operations summary after your meal service. So after all of your kiddos come through the line, we've got to figure out how many meals we serve, right? And so that's the little screenshot we have in the corner here. And so you run that report, print that report. The number that you served in mealtime should match the number that you physically served on your line, right? If those numbers differ, then that means that maybe not all the kids got, you either counted too many kids, like maybe someone came through, entered their PIN number out of habit, but didn't take a meal. That would not be okay. Or maybe that kids came through the line and uh, they never fully entered their PIN or entered it wrong and we didn't capture them and we would have lost that money. Couple of questions here. So, can you type the kiddos in if the line is going slow? Absolutely. So the idea being is I actually kind of like, I think we can pretty much type we can type and tap their name pretty quickly. And so if you don't have any fancy barcodes or pin pads, typing is a perfectly acceptable way. Again, this we should still be confirming that's the student. So I always, if we know their name, we're not going to make them say their first and last name, but I might just greet them and say, "Hey, Claire, enjoy your lunch today," right? As I'm typing their name in. I got another question that was, can the daily report be stapled to the back of your production records? I would not staple anything because what if Claire or I say, hey, we're getting audited. Can you scan us a month of production records? That's a lot of staples for you to remove. But it should be paired with it. So what I like to say is have your production record binder, 3-hole punch everything, and just put it in an order. And that way it will effectively be part of your production record. It will stay with it in the binder. But if you ever need to drop everything in a flatbed scanner, you don't have to get that little, the little like claw staple puller out. You don't need to go find that anywhere. So, yes, keep it with your production records. No, don't add staples. Your future self will thank you. Finally, I say all of this to get to the point where if our claims team is emailing you about backdating counts, we should really talk because there's not a lot of instances where we shouldn't be using our point of sale live in this line. Like we should be entering meals into the computer when they are actually being served. That's both the most accurate way to do it. Also, honestly, it's going to save you so much time in the long run. And it's going to make sure your claim is filed in a timely manner because you've already paid your vendor. We need to get that cash back into your child nutrition fund so it doesn't dip into your other bank account. So if we are requesting backdating or if we're checking on meal counts and there wasn't like a specific incident or accident or a reason why something like if that's happening regularly, let's connect because that's also a really good indicator that we're out of compliance in other areas because our point of sale is not a functioning part of our line. So I think that's a good reason for us to talk. And we've got support and systems that can help you overcome any hurdles that might be the reason you haven't chosen to roll out a live computer in mealtime while you're going through your lines. So a great reason for us to connect and troubleshoot. And again, I think overall save you time and effort in the long run because you've got just a better, more automated system that's counting meals for you. So you're not running around with paper counts and scanning things in and manually backdating. That does not sound like what I'd want to spend my Friday afternoon doing. Building off of that, one of the reasons that you might not be able to, or you may feel that it doesn't work well to do your point of sale on the line is because you're actually spending so much of your time managing your line. And so that I think is the thing that can enhance your program overall is just helping to create a more managed, calm line. So I like to think this is your line. So if kids came in too rambunctiously, have them go back outside and reset. Have them pause, right? Like it is your kitchen and you should take charge of it. A couple of things that may not be possible all the time, but here's a couple of things that I would say we could absolutely do and get the rest of the team on board with us to support us through the school year. So first one's going to be start in the classroom, work with the teachers to practice and make sure that there's other people helping to support you with the expectations of the lunchroom, right? Like your job is to serve the food compliantly. It's not your job to manage behavior of a whole school, right? That is a team effort, and you should have some team members helping you with that. Shape the path and literally shape it, right? Whether that's stanchions or railings or cones or, how do kids know where to go if we don't help them, tape the ground or line things up or color code things, right? And so those are all things that your school probably already owns and can do and will make a lot of sense. And you could match whatever, they probably have a line protocol for when they're coming in from recess or where they're lining up in this morning or dismissal in the afternoon. And so match that in the lunchroom too, right? That it adds structure to their day and it makes your job easier. Um, a lot of a, a lot of line issues can be solved by metering the front of the line. So instead of trying to space the kids out when they're backing up at your point of sale at the end, have someone in the front, let five kids through at a time, right? It really won't slow it down in the run. It'll be a more pleasurable experience for everyone through the line, and it makes the work you need to do at your point of sale um, much more calm and consistent because you just got a smaller group of kiddos at the end of the line because you're spacing them out at the front. And if none of these things seem like they would help, possibly one of the things is we just need a little bit more time, right? And so that would always be that's again, there's never enough minutes in the day, but we're not talking about 30 more minutes. We're talking about 3 more minutes. And if you just, again, either spacing groups out or anything we can do to just keep the congestion, the chaos down, then the compliance piece gets a lot easier. And so those are also, again, I wouldn't expect you to go to your principal and have those conversations of like, hey, you need to change dismissal times in your bell schedule, but I sure can, right? And so I think that's something as School Food Solutions as a partner that we can explain both why that is better for students why they eat more food, increase participation, focus more after lunch, and also just keep your whole program in compliance. Like that's a conversation I'd love to have with anyone. And so utilize us as a partner if we want to implement changes like that at your school. All right. We talked a lot about just like assuming this was the big assumption, assuming that you had a cafeteria and a lunch line and a lot of those things, which not all of our schools do. We have some have very limited setups. And also, no matter what school we have, we also go on field trips too. So the last thing to say here is all of the rules we just talked about. So meal production records and point of sale, nothing changes if you're at SeaWorld, right? How we do it and where we do it will change a little bit. And so what that usually will look like is we are going to order separate meals from our vendor. We either are going to bag them up or they're going to come pre-bagged, and we'll maybe have milk separate in an ice chest. We're sending a laptop, although possible, is usually not practical on a field trip. So what we'll do is we'll go into mealtime, we'll print a roster. Teachers will complete that roster when kids take the meals, and they'll return it to you with the leftover food that comes back to your kitchen. Either that afternoon or the next day, it's going to be your team's job to get that into mealtime so that the counts are accurate and you can complete your production records from the day before. Remember, the longer you wait on this one, that means you still got to go back and do your production records, you still got to do your backdating, and you still got to redo your meal counts. And so we really want to stress to the teachers of like this paper's got to be returned that when that field trip returns. That also is part of your records for the meal program, and we're gonna want to save those for 5 years too. Ooh, all right. We talked a lot about compliance stuff. Now we're going to talk about serving the food. And so this section should not be new to anyone, but I want to try to talk about it a little bit differently this year. So this is going to be offer versus serve, in meaning that kids do not have to take everything. So here's our basic definitions. Again, we have components. Those are one of the 5 food groups we offer. We have food items. Again, that's the example of that picture of the salad right there. That's an actual example from Revolution Foods. That's a specific food that contains multiple of the 5 components, right? So we've got vegetable, protein, and I think probably grain all in one container. That's great for us, but it's confusing when we're talking about the building blocks of the meal program. And then when your order shows up and you just get one thing, right? We have the ability to do what we call a serve or straight serve or a serve all program, but honestly, that just creates so much waste. And now California law makes us responsible for the waste. I don't believe any of us, except for I think Miss Parker, you may be my only serve all school on here. So, listen to this section with a caveat. But I know we think we're moving you that direction as well. Everyone else on this call is implementing offer versus serve, which we still put out all of the five components, but we allow students to decline up to two of the components at lunch to minimize plate waste. Now, we I used to always say you had to choose three, right? But that I feel like we're trying, thinking about it a different way. Glass half full, glass half empty, right? Like this is a different way to think about it is we're offering all five. Students can decline two. So what that also means is if students walk through your line but don't take one thing, but they take the other four, that's reimbursable. We don't need to do anything else with them, right? They can decline one and there's no harm, no foul. We always have choice in our program. So again, regardless of serve or offer versus serve, you would have choice on a daily basis. For every single SFA, that's going to be milk, right? We always offer two types of milk, at least. Some schools may get three types. And then many schools will have a choice of fruit or a choice of vegetable, and that's great. Again, I might not want the baby carrots, but I would take the cucumbers, and that want both of those in the right portions count as a vegetable, and that's wonderful. So the goal of offer versus serve is to reduce plate waste, right? If Why are we feeding the trash can? If we know the kid doesn't want to eat it and they've already taken just enough, as defined by the USDA, of the other things, then that's good enough. And this also allows students choice and autonomy. No one likes to be told what to do, right? And so if I'd rather have a choice of fruit, vegetable, or both, as opposed to here's your fruit and here's your vegetable, right? It feels better making those choices. And that's really why we have kids at school anyway, right? To be independent thinkers and to learn and to try new things. And this really just like fits with everyone's educational program. Now, the components of it, this part should not be new to anyone. This slide shouldn't be new to anyone. You've probably seen this 5 years running. It hasn't changed. We've still got our fruits, our vegetables, our grain, our meat alternate. That's our protein. What we can offer for our protein they've expanded some of those pieces there. There's a big push for more meatless options, but again, it still is a protein component. The grain component, we're now up to 80% whole grains, and so you're going to see more whole grain or all items with more whole grains in them. And our milk choices there, again, we've got more flexibility on milk, but the idea is there's still two of them out there. That's your meal pattern for lunch. And these are still the same components that make up your breakfast items. So, in three sentences, and thinking specifically about our vended meals, because again, our vendor does not deliver food in clear color coded boxes, five different boxes, right? They deliver food that's packaged, sealed, already partially presented. And so, what does that look like when we serve it? So, I tried to distill this down to three sentences. So, go with me on this one. Tell me if this works for you as well. Every day, you're offering five components, right? That's these guys. Not hasn't changed, not going to change. There are five components that are part of your national school lunch program, reimbursable lunch, and you offer all of those daily. If one of those is not out on the line, it's not compliant because you didn't offer it. Students can then decline up to two of those components, but students must take a fruit, vegetable, or both. So let's break this down, right? When it arrives, you may have you may have multiple components. So you may have your vegetable and your protein in one bowl. You may have three in one, right? So the top example here, we've got looks like a beef, like maybe a turkey and red sauce on an elbow pasta with a good sized serving of broccoli on the side. That's three components. That's a reimbursable meal there. Students could decline to take the milk and the fruit when they walk through the line, but if they took that whole container, that's a reimbursable meal for you. Your job is done. Right. And so, similar idea with a salad. That's another way where we're able to put a grain, a vegetable, and a protein together, or many pasta dishes will be able to work the vegetable in there as well. Those are great examples of of three components already being together. And then if the student declined the other two items that were out there, that's a reimbursable meal. So I'll move a little quicker through this because this should be refreshing for us. We still have our vegetable subgroups, nothing changed there. And we still have our grade groups and nothing changed there, right? Our bigger kids get more food. We offer additional vegetable daily for our high schools, and we offer additional vegetable over the week in all of the not in all some of the categories are the same, but overall through the week they're getting a additional vegetables. Same thing with the fruit. We're offering a whole cup daily for our high school kiddos, even though they still only need to take that half cup serving. Same thing with, and again, this lays out the vegetable a little bit clearer, that we are offering a cup at our 9 through 12 level, where we're only offering a 3/4 cup at the K through 8 level. And again, the serving they're required to take is a half cup. Here's the best part about all this. You're not doing math here. Your vendor pre-portions that for you. Again, we still go back to our fruit, vegetable, or both. Our grains are at 80% now, but here's what it really looks like, right? So orange, broccoli, milk, and our hamburger. If you take all five, that's great. That's a reimbursable meal. If you decline to take the vegetable and milk, right? So that is, hold on, sorry, I got a little ahead of myself here. You decline to take the vegetable and or the milk, you've still got a reimbursable meal. These are three components. We got our grain, our protein, and our fruit, and that is reimbursable. You can decline to take the milk and the fruit, but as long as you take the vegetable along with your entree, that's reimbursable as well. You can, if you didn't take the burger but took the other three, that would be reimbursable. More specifically, this probably looks more familiar to us, right? Because we usually don't have loose broccoli florets, but we would have bags of baby carrots. And so in a meal like this, as long as you're taking the a combination decline, as long as you students are only declining two and still take a fruit or a vegetable, that's reimbursable. This is a great example of something that actually might come from Revolution Foods, where we've got our grain, our protein, and our vegetable in the center entree, right? We've got a tamale here with black beans. We offer another vegetable, we offer fruit, but if they just take that tamale entree, that's reimbursable. And so this is where I think a vended meal program gives you a lot of flexibility. How do I know? How do I know that? I don't without checking our daily MPR. So circling back to why are the MPRs so important? Because they'll tell you what of any of these combinations is or isn't reimbursable, right? It'll tell you what the components are and where they are. One of the things that does not change is that students do not have to take a milk under offer versus serve. We offer two types daily, but they don't have to take it. That of the two things they're allowed to decline, milk can always be one of them. The caveat to that declining two things is just one has to be a fruit or a vegetable. So again, if we distill this all down to one sentence, it's please take a fruit, vegetable, or both. With a vended meal model, if they have the entree in one hand, I'd say 99% of the time, if they have a fruit or vegetable in the other, you've got a reimbursable meal. They got two hands, they got two things, one's an entree, one's a fruit or a vegetable, you're getting paid back for that. So that's where at the very minimum, if we just say, please take a fruit, veggie, or both, we've probably covered our bases. Now let's talk breakfast. Why did the USDA make breakfast different? I don't know. I don't think they thought it. It's a separate law that was passed at a different time, and for whatever reason, they wanted to make it based on items, not components. We're going to see a lot of similarities. So every day, you're still going to see fruits, grain, and a choice of milk. Your vendor has the option to sub in vegetables as the fruit, or sub in the meat alternate for the grains. They may do that some days, but not every day. Very common what we're seeing is bread-based items. So like a big muffin with a choice of apple and orange, right? That's very common. But we also might see like a biscuit sandwich with a sausage patty or a tortilla with an egg wrap. Also great options. Where those are examples of where you might sub in that protein. So similar idea, but with items, some things can double count. So at breakfast, if we were using a 5-component tray like this, you're not going to fill all the components because in this example here, we've got a 2-ounce muffin, which is one component, but counts as 2 items because there's 2 ounces in there. And we've got a 1-cup apple, but it counts as 2 items because each serving of fruit is in a half cup of size, in the half cup size. And so this is actually a compliant meal here, just these 3 things. Again, we're serving multiple We at minimum we have the three components: the grain, the fruit, and the milk. And we need to have at least four items out here, which in this case we actually have five items, even though it's in three units. It's confusing, but that's how the USDA works. Again, back to we check our production records. Again, I think the more variation we'll see would be on the breakfast side. So this is a compliant breakfast because, again, we said the apple counted for two items and the muffin counted for two items. Um, so they took four total items, even though it's just two components. This is not compliant at lunch, unfortunately. So you'd still need to add on a milk, a vegetable, or a protein to make this reimbursable because in lunch we only deal with components. However, given that flexibility that we count items at breakfast and that things can be made up of multiple individual food items can be made up of components that double count, it gives us a lot more ability. It gives us more ability, I should say, to pre-bag things to make a grab and go breakfast, right? Because you could put this muffin and that apple into a bag. You could still have the milk on the side, but it would be a very quick service, right? And in the morning where we're just trying to get kids into the classroom, right? Like grab and go breakfast is really, really a great option, as well as a second chance breakfast where maybe we only get a 10-minute break in the morning. That's not a lot of time, but it's enough to hand out a bag with a muffin and an apple in it, and that's enough nutrition to get kids through the bulk of the morning till they get to lunchtime. Right, that's a super good option for your kiddos, and it again, it's reimbursement coming back into your meal program. Finally, the if you can hit the trifecta of a grab and go item like this, right? This is yogurt parfaits are our favorite example of what can be a fully reimbursable meal. Again, we've got 1 ounce of yogurt, a half cup of fruit, and 1 ounce of granola, all in one beautifully presented clear container. You just need a spoon to go along with this. Totally grab and go. This works great at the high school levels, and this is reimbursable. That alone is, you still offer the milk and an additional half cup of fruit. But if all they took was this would be reimbursable. And it's a super great option for breakfast. The as we mentioned, at breakfast, we always offer a full cup of fruit, even though the minimum serving is a half cup. So again, if we've got TK, two big apples probably does not feel reasonable, but they only need to take one of them. At high school, if you've got big hungry athletes, they can take two apples. They can take an apple and an orange, right? We always offer a full cup of fruit for everyone in the morning. Grain, again, you can sub out your meat bean alternates for your grains. Again, this would depend on what your vendor has, your ability. Usually our items with protein in it, other than yogurt, maybe hot items. It depends on your ability to heat breakfast. But boy, does that give us some more variety in the morning. And I think breakfast is an area where people could boost participation. And so I think that would be a great place to start. Finally, let's talk after school snack. After school snack is again, one of the challenges is not everyone can offer school snack at no cost. So if you're not doing a snack program but you're interested in it, let's talk first. Depending on your FRL percentages and the area you're located, you may or may not be eligible for fully free snack. However, if you do want to offer a snack program, it is a great way to add something in after school. Again, snack is never during the day. It's always after school during your after school enrichment programming. So you would have to both serve it after school and offer after school enrichment. But if you have that, it's pretty straightforward meal service. Your vendor will menu two things and you pair those together and serve those two things. Again, they're still based out of those same components. And so you offer two and serve two together. And so if you are interested in snack but not doing it, we can talk offline. Finally, with field trips, and I think I mentioned this briefly earlier, but these are different so your vendor offers specific field trip meals. So don't feel like, you need to offer, if the field trip is on a day where you're like, that item's not going to travel well, that's okay. The item they're menuing assumes that it's coming to your school and to be served out of your cafeteria. If you need things that are travel friendly, pre-bagged, your vendor has those. They're just going to need additional time, right? And so the again, I know you're not trying to be late, but your teachers probably are going to try to spring a last minute field trip on you. This is the time of year to remind the team, hey, we need advance notice. Like you need to tell the cafeteria about your field trips, 4 weeks in advance, something like that, because your vendor's probably going to need 2 or 3 weeks to, organize and pack up and get you that extra meal. They're usually also going to deliver it the day before. So if your buses are rolling early for the field trip, it's already there. You're not waiting for Rev Foods to show up and haul it off the truck. Um, and also, again, you're probably not going to use your point of sale. You're going to need to include when you're packing up these meals, you're going to need to include that roster, right? And get a tally count back from the field trip team. Because that's where the transaction happened. That's where the point of service was functioning as that paper. And also that's the thing that's worth the reimbursement that you need to get in mealtime, or School Food Solutions doesn't know we got to claim 30 extra meals, right? And so it's a really important part to bring all of that back to the kitchen because that's where the money's at. And then finally, with the field trip lunch, it's the same as the NSLP meal pattern. And so we're still offering milk. We're still going to offer our fruit and vegetable. It may be packaged up differently, but it's still going to have the same components and the same rules apply. All right. Quick thumbs up or thumbs down. Oh, I got a question. So question in the chat. What if they go on a field trip and eat there? How do we do that with mealtime? So it sounds like this example is, say you're going to Knott's Berry Farm and part of the student ticket price included lunch at their cafeteria. Here's the good news. You don't have to do anything because it was provided and paid for somewhere else. So if that is included where you're going, and I think a lot of camps do that just as part of the package, you both don't, if every student will have the option to have that food at no additional cost, then food's taken care of and you get the day. Well, you don't get the day off. You're still serving to the rest of the kids, but you don't need to do anything with that. If the field trip is going someplace where the students will have an option to buy food, but not everyone is going to bring money to buy, we would still need to send and make sure that there's a no cost option there. And so we would probably just order a small amount of food or get a pre-order from the teacher, or the school could choose to pay for those other students' meals out of pocket, just not out of the child nutrition fund. But if they're not eating your reimbursable food, then you both don't and shouldn't enter what they did eat into mealtime because that's not reimbursable. But my guess is it's probably covered out of the field trip budget or something like that. So this is only when we're talking about ordering our reimbursable food and sending it with them, do we need to collect it and put it back into mealtime? So good clarification. All right. So are you selling other food on campus? Are your schools doing fundraisers? And they might be, and that's okay. But are you in compliance? Because that's the big question here. And this is what we've talked about in the past is anything that is not your reimbursable meal offering is considered a competitive food. And that, again, they're not banned, but if students are getting food elsewhere, they're buying food elsewhere, they're not going to come through your line, right? Or that would be the worry here. So we only need to worry about food sold on campus from midnight to 30 minutes after dismissal, right? So if this is a weekend dance, if this is a nighttime football game, we're not talking about that. We're talking about during the school day on campus and being sold, right? So if there's a class party and the teacher gives out pizza, that's going to change your meal participation that day probably because we've got one class or one grade, eating separately. You may want to know about that so that you can update your meal orders, but that would still be allowable. This is the example for this is the chess club wants to sell Domino's or sell Costco pizza out on a table in front of the quad and kids go there for lunch instead of coming through your meal line. That would be a competitive food being sold on campus during the school day, and that would be only allowable if it meets the smart snack requirements. Spoiler alert: Costco pizza doesn't meet the smart snack requirements. It's like 1,000 calories. It's delicious, right? But it's not gonna meet these more restrictive calorie limits. However, if you did have students that wanted to sell food items or clubs that wanted to sell, or if your child nutrition program wants to offer a snack bar, you have options. There's everything from Doritos to Pop Tarts to juice boxes that meet these smart snack requirements. Some of them are listed and say they're smart snack compliant on them. We should always double check, but there's a lot of products that are designed just to fall within these guidelines. And also, there is a calculator that if you've got another item that's not on this list, but you think it might qualify, you can check it by just having the nutrition label. Um, all of that to say is, you know, you would still need to track and monitor all that separately. If, for a lot of schools, the answer can be a lot easier to just tell the teacher or the student or the club is either to save it for after school or find a fundraiser that is non-food based, right? So this could be instead of selling popcorn, this could be pledging miles for like a jogathon, or selling, stickers or making crafts, right? Again, students are creative and there's a lot of other options. As long as it's not food and as long as it's, then it's not an issue selling it on campus. Also, it seems like there's always people are creative. So I'm sure you're going to get a unique request. That's always a great example of where you can tap in school food solutions of like, send us what they want to do and when they want to do it and what it is and how they want to sell it. And let us help you double check, right? Because if we can find a way to say yes, I don't want to limit what clubs do or how we bring funds into our other, extracurriculars. So if we can find a way to get to yes, we'll help you work on that as well. All right, we're just over an hour in. We're making pretty quick progress. I've only got two more sections left, and then we'll get wrapped up and get you back onto your day. We're not going to take the full 2 hours, but I will stick around with questions. And so, but let's keep going. We've got our next section with is presentation and handling the food. So so this is not a substitution for your food handlers class or your food managers class. The expectation is still that the SFA is both you as the server or part of the serving team is taking the appropriate classes and you're maintaining the appropriate health permits and things like that, right? But this section really is about food quality and just your presentation of people. Hot food that's cold is not great, and your participation will go down. But if you have good practices in place, your food quality will stay where it should be, and hopefully, increase or maintain participation, and at the bare minimum, meet and exceed all of the safety requirements. And so, uh, the big thing is we want to keep our food in our safe zones, right? And so number one, let's ensure we have a thermometer on all of our sites, whether it's a hanging thermometer in our cooling equipment or our probe thermometers for our food. We want to make sure our cold stuff stays cold, right? So our cold stuff should be below 140. Our hot stuff should be held above, or sorry, cold should be below 40 degrees, and our hot stuff should be held above 140 after it reaches that 165 during cooking. We're going to clean those devices. So, right, clean our thermometers between uses. And we're temping our food. If we're receiving food hot, we're temping it when we receive it, or we're temping our cold stuff to make sure that it arrived to us still at that fridge temperature. And we're serving it all within 4 hours. I think this is the place where, no one wants to waste food. And so we may say, oh, well, it was pasta day, and so we've got everyone loves the mac and cheese and we got 4 or 5 left over, and I'm just going to leave them out because someone might want some extras later, right? And so that's a very nice thing to do. However, pasta that was heated up at 11:30 is probably not, number one, not tasty at 2:30, and also is outside of that, is getting outside of that safety window and should not be served. It should be discarded. You with all, your vendor helps you out with this. So both, they'll know their food best, and they also provide you with their HACCP or their safety plans and standard operating procedures. So that's a document that should both be at this time of year, make sure you have it, and it's time to flip through it, right? Of like, what are the specifics, standard operating procedures in my kitchen regarding food safety? And right, a lot of these are going to be cleaning and sanitizing pieces. So that's another thing this time of year to do that inventory. That means a lot as far as when people see that stuff in the background. They know you care about safety and cleanliness, and they, you don't have to say it, but they see it in your program. In general, we've got our food logs. That's really part of our meal production records for most of us. We want to make sure our hot stuff gets hot and our cold stuff stays cold. So how do you know when to, pull your food out of the oven? It's after it hits 165 degrees. There's no bonus point. So with most of our vended food, this is food that has been pre-cooked and assembled. It is already ready to eat. We are just needing to get it up to a temperature to both kill any bacteria that may have grown on it in transit and get it to a pleasurable temperature where people want to eat it at. There's no bonus points for going higher or longer, right? So like getting it to 190 is not appropriate for the packaging or the food. You're just going to burn it and crisp it up and dry it out. So the idea would be is time it so that when it hits 165, we then hold it at 140. We just want to keep it safe and warm so it's enjoyable when we serve it. A lot of our ovens have these features built in. So you put a probe thermometer in one of the items. Once it hits 165, the oven automatically switches to a hot holding rack, and so it just keeps it at 140. And then whenever you're ready to pull it out, it's at the right temperature and ready to go. So if you know that's something, we can look at the model number of your oven. If you don't have the probe, you can buy those on Amazon. They're very inexpensive, and that's something that can both make your life a lot easier and also help your food quality. Same thing with your cold stuff is. We don't want to pull the milk out too early. We want to make sure our fridges are operating. And so we want to make sure our milk should be below 40 degrees. That's a great thing to test to make sure our fridges are working. In addition to testing the food in our fridge, we've also got our temperature log. We're doing both of these. It's not one or the other, unfortunately. We got to make sure the food is staying at the right temperature. And the temperature log on our cold storage devices, that's to make sure our fridges are operating, right? So are operating properly. If we see large swings in temperature, or if we're seeing thermometers that seem to be miscalibrated, that's also why we always ask you to have a separate thermometer in there, right? You kind of like going to a doctor and getting a second opinion, right? Like, how would you know if your thermometer isn't reading correctly? Well, you'd have to have another thermometer, and it would be at a different temperature. The idea here is that you're making sure that it's working and working properly. And if it's not, you've got plenty of advance notice to call someone to service your equipment. It's a lot easier to call up a company and ask them to come out next week to do routine maintenance on your fridge than it is to call someone to do an emergency service on a Friday, right? Like, one of those is going to cost much more than the other one. And so if we stay up on our preventative maintenance and we keep an eye on our equipment, we prevent those frantic things, right? Like, I want you leaving early or on time on a Friday, right? I don't want you waiting around for a repair person. And this is how we prevent that. All right. Switching gears a little bit, but still on the safety side of it is, again, as food servers, we're probably not the one receiving the talking to the families about meal accommodations. We're probably not the ones receiving the paperwork, at least from the families. We may have a nurse involved. We may have front office staff. But we're going to be the ones that are put in charge of actuating whatever the plan they come up with. So I'm going to give you the bare basics, and then a lot of these situations are specific, and so you can reach out to us and we can chat about it if you have additional questions. But here's the rules that you're bound by: is the USDA requires SFAs to provide accommodations for students with disabilities. That's not just food allergies. That would be any sort of disability that may be noted in an IEP or a 504 plan. That could be a physical disability. It could be both. It could have something to do with the food or their ability to get through the line, right? In general, and I feel like what is most commonly brought up to us is our food allergies. And we can say that those would generally be considered a disability, and we we are going to want to work with our vendor to accommodate those. The best practice is to utilize the CDE medical meal form. We're going to be sending, I should have mentioned this earlier, we're sending out an email after this with a bunch of resources in it, as well as the professional standards crediting for the training today. So you're going to get a copy of this linked. It's available on the CDE website or on CNIPS. Um, but the idea is we using the state provided form, it already has all of the categories the USDA wants us to collect. So if the family takes this to their doctor, they can tell us um, what the student can have and what can be committed, omitted, and any other additional accommodations should be provided. We should have we should receive, we should have a system to receive these. And so again, that could be your front office person, that may be a nurse. It depends. Maybe you, right? Like just you, because you overall see the lunch program. Um, so we do not need to collect these annually, but disabilities can change. And so it is a good idea to follow up with the family on a yearly basis to say, hey, did anything change? So good example would be celiac disease. That's what commonly does not allow you to have gluten. And so that is a autoimmune disorder that is if you have it's not going anywhere. And so if we know that, we probably do not need to make it that nothing's going to change from that year to year. A different example could be a milk sensitivity or another sort of food allergy. Those, sometimes allergies go away, sometimes they get more severe. And so that's something that's probably worth checking in on year over year with the families to say, hey, is there anything else that you've been emitting from this diet? Do we need any additional updates? Or they may say, yeah, you know what? Like that's kind of gone away. And now my kid eats cheese often. And so I want them to be able to have pizza on Fridays. So please, I'll send in an email and just document that you can pull that meal accommodation form off file. It's no longer accurate to my students' needs. And so that's something that, again, we don't need them going to the doctor yearly, but we should be checking in to make sure that our accommodations are correct and accurate. What about preferences, though? This would be I want a vegetarian meal, I want a vegan meal, I want a halal meal. We are not, in most cases, not required to make those um, accommodations under USDA rule. However, we probably should try that if we're hearing from our families that they would participate in our program if we were able to provide something on the menu that met their religious or ethical beliefs. Like it's a pretty good thing to menu. And the good news is most vendors are able to accommodate many of these requests. This has come up a lot over the last year with not just vegetarian meals, but vegan entrees. And so most of the major vendors both are able to menu a vegetarian entree and possibly a vegan entree most days of the week, if not all days of the week. Some days it's less exciting. Some days it truly is the sun butter and jelly sandwich. But at the very least, if we have vegan kiddos, we'll have something for them that they can take in our line daily. These are always good conversations to have with your vendor about what requests parents are making, right? And so that the more we can share with your vendor about what parents are asking for, the more they can modify their menus to accommodate. Again, this might not be instant, but it's good information to provide to them. And there's a lot of kids out there that listen. You don't have to be a vegetarian to love mac and cheese, and we can still have a very open and accommodating menu without needing to or just based on what our vendor is offering. And so there's more and more options out there. And so there hopefully we will be able to accommodate most preferences just based off of what our vendor already has. If you get a real doozy, let's talk about it, right? And then we can talk with the vendor, see what does the vendor offer or can provide that would meet the requests and the requirements of those families, and we'll see what we can do. All right. I promise we're close to the end here. But this section I feel like is very relevant for our food service workers, because you're the ones that have to touch all of the food. And if you have more food than you need, you have to touch it all more often, right? So whether that's counting that or stacking it or rearranging your fridge or donating it or lifting a trash bag over your shoulders to get it into a dumpster, right? Like we're the lifting people. And the less lifting you can do, the better, right? And so that's how I think about waste management. I also don't want to waste food. I don't want to feed the trash can. This is meant for students. This not just needs to go to the dump. And if it does need to go to the dump, there's now laws that require us to do certain things. And so we'll talk about all of those. But the real answer, the best answer is to just not create the waste in the first place. And so SB 1383 is the law that it requires us to minimize our organic waste. The biggest organic waste producer at a school is probably going to be the cafeteria. That's where all the food comes from. I mean, there's lawn clippings too, but like outside of that, spotlight's on us over here. Um, it's pretty easy to stay in compliance here. The law sounds scary because it's a Senate bill and it's got a big number behind it. But here's really what, if we're doing these things, we're in pretty good shape. So we should have a share table, right? Like, so if we make a kid take an apple for the meal, they're being reimbursable, but there's no world where that kid says he's going to eat that apple. Let's have a safe place for that apple to land so maybe someone else could eat it. And that'll be a share bin. We'll talk about more of that. We'll talk more about that in a second. Next will be allow milk choice with offer versus serve. If they don't want to take a milk, they don't have to take a milk. That's the greatest part about offer versus serve. And plenty of kids are sensitive to milk, don't want milk. They don't have to take it. And the less milk we give out that isn't consumed, the less it stinks up the bottom of our trash can, right? Because milk gets all sour and then we're hosing out our dumpster. Um, we can adjust our fruit and vegetable percentages. Some vendors let you do it through an online portal. Other vendors, you can just email them and they'll just help you dial in those numbers. But if we're if we are following all of our offer versus serve rules, and we truly every kid has the option to take a fruit, vegetable, or both, and every kid is taking at least a fruit, vegetable, or both, and we still have lots of extra fruit and vegetables, they can send us less. We've got our program dialed in and they can send us less of that. And again, as long as we have enough to offer the first and last kid in line the same choices, we're compliant and there's no benefit, no value in having extra apples, right? It's just again more for us to lift. Then finally, we can donate and divert food. This can be everything from a fruit basket in the front office to donating to a local pantry or shelter or food bank. But as long as if we've got food that could still be eaten, let's try to get it to someone that'll actually eat it, not just to a compost pile. um, Here's our this is not, you do not need fancy infrastructure to run a share table. Yes, you can do it. It just needs to be labeled, really. I mean, so here's best practices. We want to have it located after the point of sale, right? Like they got to at least take the food to count it as a reimbursable meal before they can toss it in the share bin. We want to keep an eye on it. I don't know, middle school, there's always shenanigans in middle school, and round fruit is easy to throw at people, right? We shouldn't hide this behind a corner, which should be near a point of sale somewhere where you can keep an eye on it, just so we can make sure that no one's tampering with the food. We don't want to make it too easy to discard though. And so I've seen some setups where it's like right after the point of sale and it just is like, pick up the apple, walk by the point of sale, throw it in the bin. Like we kind of want to trick these kids into trying their fruits and vegetables. And so it should be accessible, but let's not make it just a waste receptacle. Um, the and then also we cannot use these items to restock the line during those services. And so you can't just have one magical rotating apple, right? That goes from offering pile to share bin back to offering pile. We would still want to have enough items out there. I did see, so we got a question in the chat here about ordering things like on Fridays, pizza is, I think the example here is that pizza is going to be paired with a side salad. And so that it looks like their vendor systems automatically pair that with the salad, but the students don't consume it. I think so. I think you should still be able to um, adjust that. I think that would be a question I would ask our vendor, and that's something we can get on the phone with them. Um, because they're really salads are, they got to chop lettuce and package it up. And so if they could send you less of them, I think they'd like to. But yeah, if on a pizza day, our pizza is going to credit for our grain and our protein. And so that just means that with that slice of pizza, a kiddo needs to either take the side salad or they need to take a fruit. And as long as we have enough fruit to pair with it, we should be able to reduce our side salad. So unless there's something that's actually hard coded into their system that won't allow them to do that, I think that's a request we can make of our vendor. And so that's something we let's email me and we can chat about that offline. But I think we can figure that one out. Hopefully that's just something on their end of the system they can adjust for us because yeah, if salads are expensive and if kids aren't going to eat them, then let's get something they will eat. Like, maybe we put that money towards a nicer fruit that day, right? And so I think that's a great conversation to have with your vendor as well as I don't want to waste your time or money. You're putting these expensive salads together. My kids don't want them. Why don't you give me baby carrots? And maybe they need to hit the dark leafy green. Sure, give me half the salads, but give me apricots instead, or give me or they love apples. Give me the sliced apples. And I think that's a really reasonable request that we can work with them on because yeah, again, you are now with all of you with SB 1383. Where's my 1383 slide? Oop. I- it's a Senate bill, it's a law. We're the ones responsible for the waste. And so it's not just um it's easier to do this. It's no longer easier. We've got to find a home for these things, whether it's the trash bin or whether it's the compost bin, right? So the less we start with, the easier everyone's job gets. And also the whole reason there's laws in place, it's better for the environment too. Um, to that point, to so Nelly, thank you for that question because that gets me to really this next slide, which is we can work with our vendors to adjust our orders. So the first one is with offer versus serve fruit, and specifically at breakfast, we offer a whole cup every day. Even at the high school level, I don't know if most kids take a whole cup of fruit. They probably take one, right? They take an orange, they take an apple. So if we're receiving uh, t- uh, if we're receiving 100% fruit for both offerings, so that would mean we order 100 muffins and get 100 oranges and 100 apples. I think that's going to be way too much. We probably need more like 80 apples and 40 oranges. And that should be something that our vendors can accommodate. And you know how much all of that weighs. And so that probably is going to reduce just our total fruit on hand and our lifting, but still have more than enough to give every kiddo the choice they want, right? Just as easily with milk choice, it's not a required component. There is no value. There's no value in you having more milk than you need, right? It just is, it's making you play Jenga in your fridge. For most vendors, they would, if you, as long as you tell them we're overstocked on milk, they won't take it off the truck. Again, you pay by the entree, by the meal count. So there's no cost or benefit one way or another. It just saves you space and time. It makes your fridge work better because there's better air circulation. So if you don't need milk, there's no reason for your vendor to drop it off. And we want to get the older milk out of there first, right? So whatever was first in is first out. Um, additionally, with that, know your meal pattern, right? So if you're a K through 12, your high school, you're going to be getting more vegetable and more fruit every day. They don't necessarily need to take more of it, although they probably will. But manage what's coming through. Like that could be the reason if they're getting 100% fruit and vegetable, you're probably doubling up on that. And we want to make sure both we're ordering the right meals from the right menu for the right kiddos, right? So if we order our TK meals off the high school menu, we're going to get way too much fruit and vegetable. That's not going to be helpful. Um, and again, there's no value for us. It's just costing us time and labor of moving this food around. Um, and finally, just our total orders in general. We pay for what we order. We only get paid back for what we serve. And now it's the beginning of the school year. So I don't know. We got new classes of kids. It's a little bit of a guessing game. And our vendors need to know a rough estimate of foods a month ahead of time. But just because we put in our orders a month at a time doesn't mean we can't update them we can update them in much shorter intervals. So they probably will need a week for the changes to go into effect, but you should be up managing your orders weekly. And that could go up and down. They'll happily sell you more. And if you need to purchase less for them, they'll allow you to push those meals down within a reasonable timeline. But that's the other big thing that can help us manage our food is just if we've been ordering 100 but we really only have 70 kids eating, then we probably should order 80. And if we do that early and often in small increments, we can titrate our orders down so we get to the right number quicker. And that's going to be, again, financially better for your program. But I'm thinking selfishly for you all, it's less for you to lift, less for you to shuffle in the fridge, and less for you to have to dispose of at the end of the week. And if you can get out early on a Friday, like by all means, please do. Uh-oh, I told you I wanted you out of the office early, but I'm also giving you homework. But I think this will be pretty easy homework. So, first one, it's time to clean the kitchen. I think most schools will call you back in a few days before the kiddos actually come back. They'll probably have some HR trainings for you to do. So you're going to go in your kitchen, do do the normal things. You're going to wipe down all the surfaces, clean out the junk. If you've got broken items that you're never going to use again, get them out of your way, right? Like that's when injuries happen, when things get piled up, when you trip over stuff. If there's things that you are still work perfectly fine, but there's no world where you're going to use them again, that's of no value to you. Donate it, give it away, put it into storage, but it doesn't need to be in your way. Especially what can be in your way is the paperwork. I think I mentioned 3 or 4 times you got to save, right? We have paperwork, you got to save it. You don't have to save the old stuff in your kitchen. Your school is saving your student files for 8 plus. I mean, you've got long-term storage somewhere. So get all the paperwork that isn't relevant for the current school year and then put it into long-term storage with the rest of your student records. Label it by the year, put it in a banker's box, hide it away. But it doesn't need to be in your kitchen. There's not really a lot of chance you're going to reference it, just randomly throughout the school year. Same thing with any old policies, old letters, things, you know, you have an opportunity to walk the site with new eyes. So, look at the posters on the wall, right? Like we kind of glaze over things, right? But like, is this poster faded and torn up? Is this just not even for a program we run anymore? Are these policies date? Is this the health inspection from 2019? Like, there's you'd be amazed by all the kitchens I walk into with documents that aren't months out of date, but like years out of date. And again, part of that is when you started the job, it was posted on the wall and someone told you to leave it up there. It had to be posted, and now you've been here 7 years, and the document's still there, right? And so this is the time where again it's your space, and make sure you've got the relevant things up, but take time to walk and put yourself in the students' shoes. I like to share a story as I went out to a school site and they had a salad bar, and the plastic still had the salad bar sneeze guard still had the blue protective film on it. And I said, is this still the blue film? They're like, no, I think it's just blue plastic. And I like kind of picked it up. I'm like, no, this is the blue film. Like you should peel this off. And they're like, huh, I never noticed. But the reason I noticed is I went to look in the salad bar and I couldn't see what was in it because again, it had this foggy blue film on it. And that's how the students ate their food every day is they couldn't see what was in the salad bar. They had to kind of peer under it and guess. So, that, really thinking about like how what am I doing for my kiddos? How am I interacting? And like, how does it feel to go through my kitchen? Again, you can't do that on the busy days, but now's the time of year where you can kind of, get in that Zen mode and really think through like, how do I want this to look, right? Finally, this is also the time of the year that like we want to make sure everything's running and running optimally for you. Most schools have money in their school food account specifically for things like maintenance and repairs, right? So if no one's ever been out to service your refrigerators, that probably is due for a service. If you have a 3 comp sink and a grease trap, that's something that probably needs both a service and maybe even a maintenance contract to have someone come out regularly. Like whether we need to sharpen knives or repair tile and moldings and things like that. Now's the time of year that if someone needs to come into your kitchen and block stuff off or move furniture, like it's time to put in those tickets now. So homework assignment number 1 is to go give your kitchen some TLC. Included in that is, again, look for the signs, right? We are going to send out an email with some resources. We've got the required postings, but these are, again, these haven't changed. It's your and Justice for All poster, your health certificates, your two most recent permits, your food handler's card, your offer versus serve signage, your monthly meals, your local wellness policy and assessments, and your USDA complaint forms. You may still have all of this stuff up from last year, which is great, but does it need to be retaped? Do you want to put new backing on your bulletin board? This would be the time to give a little TLC there. Again, always have my examples of, you've got the, put up, make it your own too. So you can make your own sides, you could do your own. These can be low tech decorations, but again, it's your space and make it yours. Finally, one of the things we ask you to do every year, this is a requirement of the CVE and the USDA, is to complete a civil rights training. This is something, it's a short video. We're going to send you out the link to do it. The CDE always recommends that you use their training. And so I'm not going to try to reinvent the wheel. I'm just going to let you watch theirs. Again, it's 12 minutes. It's an easy watch. You can watch it together with your team. The only thing I'm asking you to do is write down the date and time you watched it. We're going to, in the email we send you, we're going to give you a little sign-in sheet as the body of the email, so you can print it and sign it and date it. So the work's already done for you. You just need to sit down and watch it. Again, finally, just the notes on the civil rights training is, civil rights complaints are really rare. We shouldn't have any, because we're offering meals to everyone, right? But I think the biggest thing here is, the best practice to avoid civil rights issues is golden rule stuff, right? Am I treating this person the way I treat others? Have I provided them all of the information? Have I given them the opportunity to ask questions? Have I informed them with the exact information they need, right? Like, did we help them like we would help everyone? We do that evenly across the board. If you're treating everyone if you're treating everyone well, you're in good shape here. And finally, the last one, the POS test. Everyone's got technology issues. This is the time of year when all of our technology is changing. We're using new stuff. Before the first day of school, log into your POS, make sure your internet works, make sure you found the charger. Make sure, again, we're checking on our end, but again, I know some schools are still in the middle of enrollment, things like that. But if you should make time to log into mealtime, make sure you're connected to the internet. Tech might have changed the password, and then check and see that new students' names are coming up. If they're missing, email school forms at School Food Solutions, and we will support you with getting your sync and your data and your roster imports done, so your POS works on the first day of school. So that's it. So you get my final thoughts slides here. So I want us to see our programs grow. These meals are for every student. They truly help our programs financially. Again, this is one of the few ways schools can bring in revenue. And even if you're just breaking even with all of the costs added up together, you're still protecting your meal program from encroaching into other budgets, right? Because it's law. Like, we are offering food, we are diverting organic waste. There's no option to do those things. And if we do them in a fiscally responsible way, then we don't eat into the art supply budget. We don't take time away from someone else, and that truly supports the whole school. Our meals support learning and improve education outcomes. You don't learn on an empty stomach. And so it also helps with behavior issues. These meet the USDA standards. Like, it really is important at our schools for anyone, regardless of income level, that they're in our buildings for 8+ hours a day a lot of the time. So these kiddos are gonna get hungry, and we're the ones that provide them food. So you're doing a lot of hard work. And again, in California, it's the law. And so we want to keep, again, especially for my charter schools that are on this call, we want to stay in good standing. We want to stay out of the news, and running a compliant meal program is a great way that we stay out of the spotlight. And so School Food Solutions is here to help you do that. So all that being said, we'll get you out of here a little bit early, but I realize we did an hour and 40 minutes. And so thank you all for your patience, and thank you all for your participation in this call today. I'm going to stay on in the chat and hang out for a few minutes while everyone pops out of here, but you are all welcome to go. And if you've got questions, you're welcome to put them in the chat now. But thank you everyone for your time.